Welcome to the Individual Transition Planning ITP Page 1. Take note that there will be 2 pages for ITP. Transition planning focuses on preparing students with an IEP for life beyond the classroom. Transition planning must start and be in effect before the student turns 16 years of age, be individualized, be based on the student's strengths, preferences, and interests, and include opportunities to develop functional skills for work and community life. Best practice is to initiate a transition plan when a student turns 15 to ensure it will be in place when he or she turns 16 years old. The very first inquiry at the top of the page asks whether the student was invited. A student must always be invited, but they do not have to attend if they are under 18. Double check to make sure that the meeting notification reflects the student was invited. The next probe to the right asks, if appropriate and agreed upon, indicate if agencies were invited. Support agencies need to be invited to the meeting notification with parent or guardian permission. If an agency is invited, mark yes. When it is not appropriate, mark NA. You should never have to mark no. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act states the public agency must invite a representative of any participating agency that is likely to be responsible for providing or paying for transition services. Common agencies include Inland Regional Center, Department of Rehabilitation, California Children's Services, CCS, or if the student is working with any other program or agency, ensure to invite them. Next, you are going to select options on how the student participated in the process. IEP teams are encouraged to select more than one option. The choices are the student is present at the meeting, you interviewed the student prior to the meeting, the student completed an interest inventory, or the student filled out a questionnaire. All of these options are a great way to identify the student's interests and preferences. To the right, select yes that age-appropriate transition assessments and instruments were used. Yes should always be selected as the results are what drive the individual transition plan. In the box below, you will record the transition assessment information and results used to identify the student's preferences and interests as they relate to his or her post-secondary goals. Keep in mind that the assessment should be comprehensive, not just vocational. This portion can serve as the student's present levels for the transition section of the IEP. It helps the team determine what the post-secondary goals will be. It should give the team an idea what the student plans on doing upon graduation or completing school. The gap between the result of the transition and the student's interests is the basis for the post-secondary goals. Please view the sample, and you will find many transition tools in the Resources tab. Best practice is to include assessment information from multiple people and provide student performance in a variety of environments. The next box titled Students Post-Secondary Goal, Training or Education Required. Notice in parentheses it states required. This section must be completed. You will describe what the student wants to do further with their education and/or training after high school. It is not the process of pursuing a desired outcome, but it is identifying a goal the student hopes to achieve after high school. Using the information from your interview, transition assessments, inventories, or questionnaire about the student, you will write a brief description on the student's desires under the statement, upon completion of school, I will. Here are some examples. I will enroll at blank college or university. Earn an occupational certificate in blank. Enroll in vocational training program in blank. Complete on-the-job training with blank. Enroll in adult education, or learn independent living skills from the regional center. It is best to be specific about the education or training as it should be linked to the results of the student's assessment. You can also take note of the sample that we have provided. For students who are completing a certificate of completion and continuing in an adult program, it is appropriate to state the program in which they will be participating. Draw your attention to the probe linked to annual goal number. Do you need an annual goal to support the necessary skills needed to reach the post-secondary goal? If you do, you will list the goal number of the IEP that supports this post-secondary goal. If you selected the transition box from the goal page, ensure it links with the appropriate post-secondary goal. The next segment asks in input the person/agency responsible. This is a reminder that post-secondary goals are updated annually. There must be documentation from the post-secondary goals in the IEP for the current year and have been updated according to the student's changing strengths, preferences, and interests. Take a look at the section Transition Service Code. Choose an appropriate transition service code that will be used to support the student's post-secondary goal. There is a drop-down menu. However, to match the training or education portion, you will select code 820 College Awareness. This will auto-populate the Services Offer a FAPE page. When you get to the Services page, the IEP will determine the frequency and duration. For the box titled Related Services, as appropriate, include any related services the student may need based on their disability that will help the student achieve his or her post-secondary goals. For example, career counseling, orientation and mobility transportation, deaf and hard of hearing services at a job site, speech and language for communication device in the community, and others such as that. In the box for activities to support post-secondary goals, you will identify and list different activities that you do in your program to help the student achieve his or her post-secondary goals. For example, career research paper, college application, job applications, resume writing, workability training, participate in mock interviews, engage in self-help units on blank, etc. You will find a list of activities to support the post-secondary goals in the Resources tab. For the community experiences as appropriate, you can identify any activities in the community in which the student will be participating in the community. For instance, examples may include community-based work experiences and/or exploration, job site training, banking, shopping, transportation, counseling, visiting campuses and learning where the offices are located to get help, and recreational activities. You will find a list of activities to support the post-secondary goals in the Resources tab. For the student's post-secondary goal in employment, this section is also a required field that must be completed. Again, reference the results of the student's transition assessments. You will input what the student wants to do for a career after high school. Upon completion of high school, I will work as a mechanic, work as a teacher, work in supported employment. I will work at a bank. Or our example, work full-time at a restaurant or company business that involves fashion design. We already went over the corresponding fields, so I won't go through them again, but I do want to emphasize that there has to be at least one annual goal linked to a post-secondary transition goal, whether it is under training/education or under employment. The last section is students' post-secondary goal, independent living, as appropriate. Notice in parentheses it states as appropriate instead of required. The only area in which post-secondary goals are not required by the IEP is independent living skills. Goals in independent living are required only if appropriate. It will be up to the student's IEP team to determine whether IEP goals related to the development of independent living skills are appropriate and necessary for the child to receive FAPE. It is important that the entire IEP team has input in determining if the child needs independent living goals. Regardless of the type of disability the student has, independent living goals may be necessary to live as independently as possible once the student graduates from high school. Think of things like cooking a meal, getting from point A to point B, obtaining a driver's license, and even personal hygiene. At the end, don't forget to click Save.